Hello, hello, hello. Happy Saturday. How are you all doing this Saturday? What kind of weather do you have in your neighborhood? We've gone from 80 degrees to like 70 to snow today. We've had all the seasons in 1 week. Thank you for coming to our monthly book chat.
Hey, it's so great to
Hey,
see
how
your
are you?
face. How you doing?
Good to see
Hey,
you.
I'm doing. I'm
How are you
here. How
doing?
you doing?
I know you've been
Yeah,
traveling quite a bit
it
for
has
your book
really been a
tour.
blessing to be all here, there, and everywhere. It's been such a good time.
That is
And I see you
that
still
is
rocking this blonde
wonderful.
hair.
Yeah, it's gone from blonde to platinum to like honey blonde. So we're just
I
trying to
love
see which one
it. Hey,
I'm gonna
I
stick
love it.
with.
Every time I see you, I'm like,
Thank
if I do
you.
braids again, are they gonna be blonde? I'm
Go for it. Definitely go for it. I
Girl,
like it.
you
It's
making me you
easy.
making me think.
Easy peasy. Yes. I'm so glad that you joined us today, and I'm glad that we selected your book
Oh
for
my
our
God, thank
February
you so
Spine of the
much.
Month.
I am so excited about this. I'm such a huge fan of your show, and this is such a blessing to even be here. So thank you.
Thank you for joining us. So I'm going to do a quick introduction. I let
Mhm.
our authors, introduce themselves. So I'm just going to start off by, I'm Jamise Harper, and I am the founder and creator of Diverse Spines. And February, our spine of the month
There
is
it is.
Moonrise Over New Jessup by Jamila Minnicks. Yes. And I got the opportunity to kick
Yay.
off your book tour with you at
Oh
Loyalty
my
Books,
God.
which was awesome. We had a really good time.
Yeah, he
Robert Jones
did.
Jr. surprised us and bought us flowers. He came on the, I mean, can you believe he came all the way from New York
You and
to
you and
DC
I
to
need
surprise us
to
for your
collaborate
kickoff?
to get him back. I still haven't found a really good way to get him back yet.
We got
We have to.
to get him back. I mean, we're literally sitting there getting ready to have the conversation, and Robert Jones Jr.,
Down
author
the
of The
aisle.
Prophets, walks in with flowers.
I was like,
I was like,
I know this
where did
man,
you
and I
come
know this
from?
man, and this masked man is not Robert Jones Jr. coming up this aisle right now.
I mean, I literally I was like, that looks like Robert, but no, it couldn't. I'm thinking I'm jet lagged, because I just got back from Europe. So I'm like,
Oh,
I'm
it
jet. I
was.
said, that can't be Robert. And I saw that walk,
Right.
and I was like, that is Robert. So I'm happy to speak with you again
Mm-hmm.
for your
Mm-hmm.
debut novel, which has gotten rave
Yeah.
reviews. I mean, people are loving it, and I'm sure our readers have enjoyed it. So what I would like to start off with is just to have you tell the audience a little bit about yourself. And if any of you have any questions, you can drop them in the comment section and we'll ask them towards the end. So tell us a little bit about you, and how did you get to your first book? How did you get to your
So
publishing
I
journey?
was
What was that
practicing
like?
law. I practiced law for several years, and I was working in a place where I just felt like I wasn't in a position to really use my voice. And so I started writing short fiction and writing like longer pieces as sort of this way to really sort of challenge myself, ask myself some questions that I couldn't get the answer to, things about the world, things about, Black empowerment, things, just about things that I wanted to see in the world. And so in the summer of 2020, I started writing Moonrise Over New Jessup. And it was really this, it all started it started from a couple of places. It started from this question of what does Black empowerment and self-reliance, self-determination, self-governance, what does that really look like? What does it mean? Um, and what would have happened if we were sort of part of the debates that were going on? I know in my mama's community and communities like New Jessup, where people were saying, hey, look, integration isn't what y'all are telling us it's going to be. And we have these communities where we're really interested in sort of having our voice heard on the issue. So I wrote that in about 2 months because it was just something that was really on my heart. You know, I always, but I always
And
say
that's
it was a
quick.
story that was right here. That's always lived with me in some way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
And so the urgency was to get it out. So in that regard, it was something
Right.
that, you know, it felt very important. It felt very much like something that needed to be written. And I had been writing, and I felt like I had finally sort of earned the skill set in order to write it. And so I started waking up real early in the morning, working real late at night after my work day was done, and just sort of like snatching those edges of the day that Toni Morrison talks about. And, you know, really got to
Hmm.
meet Alice and her kin in those 2 months.
And so tell us a little bit about the book, because this is a no spoiler conversation, because if people
Okay.
don't have the book, we want them to go get
Okay.
the book. We want them to read the book.
Hmm.
But it's 1957. And I think what struck me most was that your vivid descriptions. You
Hmm.
know, we talked about this. I mean, that snatched me right away of when Alice gets off the bus and
Yeah.
realizes that she's in an all black town. So tell us what is happening and
So
why is she getting off the bus
Alice
in this
gets
all
off the
black town?
bus in 1957, Alabama. Her daddy has just passed away. Her mom had passed away a few years ago, and her sister had moved to Chicago. And Alice gets on the bus, and she's thinking that she's on her way to Chicago, but she didn't have any money to get past Birmingham. So at one of these stops where Alice is like, I never really wanted to leave Alabama. I don't really want to go to Birmingham, and I definitely don't want to go to Chicago. She gets off the bus and she looks around, and the shoeshine man is like, he can see that she's sort of leaving this place. She's also had a really dangerous encounter with her landlord. So she's stressed, right? She's got all these different stresses going on in her life. And she ends up here and she looks around and she sees people who are not just black like her everywhere, but they seem to be people who are thriving. And what really catches her eye is this woman in these bronze shoes walking in the front door of a cafe. And in her entire experience, she's never witnessed something like that. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
because
because
I
she
think
would
she has to go to the
have to go
back,
to the
right?
back, or they would have these windows in cafes where you couldn't even go inside. And so nowadays you'll go to these buildings, these historic buildings, and you'll see like a window where it looks like the brick doesn't match, where it's been bricked over. And that'll be those old,
Yes.
like colored service windows where Black people had to go to the side and they had to get their food and whatever in those windows. And so she sees this woman literally walk through the front door and she's like, I don't understand where I am. No, yeah.
Right. Right. And so tell us about New Jessup, because it's a character of itself. You know, it's an established town by
Mhm,
freedmen, and it's like across the
mhm.
woods from a white community. So how did New Jessup come to be like this,
Well, New
you
Jesup
know,
is
this
modeled after
community?
the more than 1,200 Black towns and settlements we've had in this country. We started hearing about them in the late 18th century, and there was one founded as recently as 2019 in Freedom, Georgia. And so there are these towns and settlements, and they're not all incorporated municipalities. I mean, that's sort of the pinnacle of what they were able to achieve, places like Eatonville or Hobson City. But it could just be like a couple blocks, like you would
Yeah.
find these enclaves of a couple blocks where some families owned the street, like a couple blocks of a street in New Orleans, or you find places that were old slave, like quarters where the enslaved lives. So that's why you hear people call them always the old quarters or the bottoms. So the neighborhoods, or like my mama
Yeah.
grew up in this place called Baptist Hill in Demopolis, which was all Black. And there were these places where you could see it and you could be it. And they were, we had doctors, we had hospitals where those doctors could practice. We had theaters, we had schools and churches. We had everything that we needed in order to be a community in and of ourselves. But that, obviously the issues came with um, like being under resourced, or this perpetual sort of threat of anti-blackness and anti-black violence. But within the community, which is what I really wanted to do in this community, is tell the
Right.
story within the community. You see the beauty and the language and the nurturing and the kindness and the bad jokes and the rivalries and all that just existed in these spaces.
there's so much tenderness like in this community, you know, like they take care of one another. It's a sense of family, friendship. But I like that you talked about how New Jessup came to be, because it was destroyed. And so it's really semblance of having, you know, real life Black establishments that were destroyed by white people. And so can you talk a little bit about that? Because I mean, they tried to run them out. They ran them out of the area and they built their own in swampland. And then they still came to
So
destroy, and they
the original
rebuilt
community,
again.
remember, was called Negro Jessup. And that was like right at emancipation.
Yes.
The white folks said, we have this quote Negro problem, which was we need y'all for labor. We need y'all to be close to us, but we don't want to live by you. We don't want to be socially close to you. And so there was, you know, cotton just destroys farmland. So the white folks said, you can have all this land over here, go on and take it, build up whatever you want. You can live over there, and that's where you live. And so the Negro Jessup was built up to be like right during Reconstruction. It was one of these communities where, you know, people who had been recently enslaved were formerly enslaved people sending their children off to new colleges that were built for us. We're educating our children, you know what I'm saying? And so at the turn of the century, you have almost 40, 50 years of Negro Jessup building up. And she says at one point, you know, the Negro Jessup was thriving and making the white folks across the tracks wonder who was living across the tracks from who. And so the white folks came in and took it. And it wasn't so much they burned it to the ground, because this happened too, where we had our own savings and loans and all this stuff. And white folks said, that's a nice house, I want it. And because we didn't own the land, because I came up with land is wealth. And so because we didn't own the land, the white folks came back and said, this is ours. So there are all these different ways. It was sort of this plan eminent domain, and this way of like, when we don't own the land or we don't have full autonomy over what we can do with the land, how it can just be snatched from us. And then, but then, you know, folks are in the swamp, our elders and ancestors are out there in the swamp, and everybody's in the swamp, like with equal opportunity, get snake bit and fever and all this other stuff. So they said, we got to get to work. You know, we don't have the luxury to sit back and woe is me and all that. We got to get to work, because, you know, otherwise, what are we going to do? Nobody's going to save us but ourselves.
Right. But ourselves. And so talk a little about, we talked about this before too as well, when you talk, and I love this, when you talk about the language that is required to tell the story. And, you know, you said the goal of translation is not to amend or alter comprehension, but to expand it, to give the listener or reader, to the extent possible, access to the beauty and richness of expression. And that is just so beautiful. And so what language was required to tell this story?
Language, right? Because this is a first person narrative from the first sentence to the last. It's completely and utterly her story, right? It's her perceptions of the world. It's her, as I envision her, telling her story to a bunch of close friends and family who really love her and who have been there to nurture and support her. Now, if we're sitting around and we're listening to Big Mama talk, Big Mama shouldn't be expected to, you know, change the way that she speaks in order to relay her own story to us. And so when I was telling Alice's story, I was thinking about all the ways, like I was just joking with my cousin the other day. We were talking about our Uncle John and the ways that he used to tell us a story. Uncle John would never put on airs. You either take him and accept him and what he's saying for what he's saying and for who he's saying it to. You don't get it. You don't get it. But it's not his job to translate himself to you, because particularly in this book, Alice is telling some of her deepest secrets, some of her biggest vulnerabilities. To add on top of that, now you also got to put on airs, which, you know, for me, that's how I feel about it. You know, you like some people say it's proper English or whatever. To me, it just sounds like if Alice sounds any other way, she's just putting on airs. And so I wanted.
And so was that a challenge? Was that a challenge in publishing? Because, you know, when you have editors and things of that nature, you know, if that language is not understood, how did that work for you? And, you know, still remaining in Alice's voice and then not having her, you know, be under the white gaze or what people would deem to
You
be
know,
not proper English.
was it a
Yeah.
challenge? My thing is, I wrote this book for Alice to tell her story, and I made that very clear. So, stat sort of, there's
Yeah.
this thing, stat, when you're in editing, it just means it's Latin for leave the thing the way it is or whatever. And so this stat became my best friend because to me, like, how does that look for me to know Alice's language, to know how my Uncle John, my mama, and my
Mm-hmm.
family told me these stories, to know what sounds proper in my ear, to write this story that's a tribute to my ancestors and elders, then turn around and change it to translate it for who? I mean, the people who need to understand it, understand it. And for people who don't maybe
Right.
understand it, we're all taught to read for context clues as children. So I don't know why that doesn't apply to Alice and her story.
Yeah. I love that. That was probably one of my favorite. When I heard you say that, I was like, oh my gosh, that is so perfect. Like,
Right. For who?
translated for
I
who?
mean, you understood her.
You know? Yeah. Um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Leave it the way it is. Exactly, Robin. Um, let's talk about these vivid descriptions, breathtaking.
Yeah.
The moon was generous with its light on our skin, streaming through the window as a creamy night sun. I mean, I highlighted, there's so many things in this book that, like I said, for me, Alice getting off the bus. And if you guys haven't read it, just go to page 4 and go down 1, 2, 4 paragraphs. When she talks about, you're talking about the different shades of Black people: cocoa brown, bronze, deep brown to match some good soul, khaki. It's just not khaki. I mean, dark brown, sun gold cinnamon. I mean, that paragraph is like, I have it highlighted. It's like my favorite. So let's talk about, how did you write these like lush descriptions?
Part of it is just looking around at us. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can write this because we see when we see ourselves, we can write it. The feeling of, seeing the sun or seeing the moon as like a creamy night sun, that comes from like full moon, where it's so creamy. It's like luscious and it's lustrous. And then to think of that slice of sun coming into a room where all these different beautiful shades of Blackness are sitting, and all the different, the purple and the green dresses, and all this beautiful rich color is bringing in this night sun. I mean, that's just, to me, like a really rich playground. And sometimes it feels,
I
and
felt
that's
like
the
I
whole
was there.
point. It's like, if I can't see that and I can't give that to y'all, then I feel like I'm not doing my job, and I'm just telling you a story. But if you're in it, if you're right there with her, then I feel like I'm doing my job.
So let's talk a bit about Alice. I want you to give me 5 words to describe her. I'll tell you my 5.
Okay.
Soulful, caring, fierce, determined.
Yeah, I like that.
But I also have a 6th one. I also have vulnerable. So let's talk about Alice and what she comes to this town. I mean, give me your 5 words, and then just tell us a little bit about her. Like, what is she? She's at a crossroads.
Yeah, so to me, Alice is all Alabama. My family is Alabama on my mom's side. So Alice to me is the women in my family. So even my Aunt Clara, at one point, she was reading, she said, "You sure Alice ain't kin to us?" I'm like, well, she is you. So, but to me, she's, women from Alabama who are smart, they're creative, they're determined, they are self-sacrificing. But most importantly, they know their own mind. And so when Alice gets off the bus, she's already become those things. She was raised by loving parents. I think it's important to really make that clear that she was raised by a family who loved her, who gave her all that. And so then it becomes, where is there an environment where she can fully be all those things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because that's the beauty of New Jessup. It's not
Mm-hmm.
that she comes into this place and she becomes those things in that place. It's that she comes to New Jessup and she can be all of that that's already in her in this place. So it's, to me, it's like she experiences this new freedom to be all the wonderful things she is.
Yeah.
Oh,
And she
yeah.
loves New Jessup.
Yeah.
But then she meets this man.
Yeah.
And so what's going on in the town? It's not giving it away if we're talking about what's going on. What's the struggle that's going on? Like, there's something happening, and Alice doesn't want to be involved in politics, but she meets a man.
New Jessup and towns like it, where people were thriving, there is a question as to what integration really offered. You know, like at one point in the book, she says, you know, I get my hair done with Miss Charlene. I go grocery shopping here. We own our land. So what, and you know, our schools are places where our children can see it and be it. They're cared for and loved on by their teachers in ways that I'm worried that wouldn't happen once the kids are integrated into these schools, where these white kids are already sending little love notes back in the books that they send us secondhand, right? So
Yes,
Alice, when she comes to this place, like when she gets off the bus, she's like, okay, I can be free to be. But the question is, for these sort of people in her generation, is the resources, and it's the political empowerment that they're lacking, because this is 1957 Alabama. There was a lot of political voter disenfranchisement going on. And this book doesn't seek to shy away from that. So Raymond and some of the, she calls them the fellas and patience, because, you know, you see sort of like the
patience.
But they have sort of come up with this hybrid approach for how they want to maintain the self-determination, self-governance of New Jessup and improve its political and economic circumstances. And Alice at first, and they've sort of courted this national civil rights organization, which has been very vocal about integration into towns. So Alice says, "You doing what?" Like, did you fall and bump your head?
Yes.
You know what those people are going to invite here, because it's not just the white folks, because everybody always immediately goes to the white people are going to come and destroy everything. But they don't think about the fact that these towns and these places, like we also do in our communities, and this has been going on since time immemorial, we police ourselves. And so I really wanted to show that aspect of how we try to maintain peace among ourselves, and how sometimes maintaining peace among ourselves means sometimes people got to go.
Yes, exactly. People have to go. And so I like that you don't shy away from, you know, the topic of, because it's not, I mean, the segregation, integration, that's not really like the meat of the book, but you don't shy away from those topics. You address that head on. And I like, you know, I really love Alice's perspective of how, you know, how is this going to benefit us if we do this? I like the town,
like
the
one
way
of my favorite parts. Well,
you know,
first of all, the whole book is my favorite part. But one of the things that really makes me laugh, one of the things that makes me laugh is when they're fussing about, you know, what are you doing? She says, "What do you think? You want a black county council, and then what next? The black president?" And he's like, "Come on." And even Raymond says, "Oh, come on, Alice." Like, even Raymond is like, "That'll never happen." Right.
That'll never happen. Yes. And I got that feeling. Yeah, you get that vibe. I listened to the audiobook, so I got that vibe when I heard that. But one thing that struck me too was you talked when you talked about the books, and it just brought me to a time when my mother talked about getting books at her all-black high school that had notes in it from the white students, and the books would be like, they wouldn't be present day, you know, current. They would be like older
they're
books,
totally outdated. They're
totally
outdated.
Yeah.
And but we think about that right from our perspective of the receipt of the books. My people were also educators who saw those books and went to great lengths to tear the pages out, to really scrub them of that, because as much as was in there that they couldn't get rid of, you know, they really wanted the kids to have access to books. I mean, since we were enslaved in this country, we knew how important it was to read. I mean, look where we are right now. We obviously understand it's important for Black people to read. You know how they used to say, if you want to hide something from it, put it in a book, right?
Put it in a book. Yeah. How they
Because
trying to hide the books.
read.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Context clue.
I mean, it is what it is. That's just that. Yes. And so there's so many things in the book, you know, Black joy, and then the pride. I mean, they're proud of their community, they're proud of their heritage, they're proud of their family. I mean, all that just shines through. I like the uplift of the community and of family and of Blackness in the book. I mean, I love that.
Where we existed, like you go to Hobson City today, they remember, and some of the old heads in Hobson City in Alabama, Hobson City, Alabama is the first incorporated all Black municipality in Alabama. I think it's number 3rd incorporated in the country. So it's about, this year it'll be 124 years old. And I went to their Founders Day last year, and they had, so David Satcher, who was President Clinton's Surgeon General, is from Hobson City, Alabama. And they were honoring him, and they surprised him bringing up his former teacher. So she came up to the front, and she was sort of standing down in the like well of the audience. And he came down and gave her a hug. And then she took the microphone. She said, "Listen, I'm talking to all the grandparents out there." She said, "Now your children are working, but there isn't a reason in the world that any of y'all's grandchildren shouldn't be reading, because all y'all are retired and you should be tutoring your grandkids." I'm like, this woman is admonishing the grandparents. There's a sense of pride that we have in these communities for our educators, for what we've accomplished, because it is community. I'm not too old to get on you. Everybody else out here may be calling you ma'am, but I am the elder in this room, and you've been to listen to me, and I'm going to tell you what you need to be doing. So there really is this sense of pride in these communities, this sort of feeling that we as a community, as a collective, can do better. And so, I think that that's something when I've talked to folks who grew up in these communities, when I've gone to the communities, when I've talked to my elders and folks who came up in, Peacock Tract in Montgomery, Alabama, folks who came up in these Black enclaves in Baptist Hill and Demopolis, all over. There's this sense of we have pride. And so I wanted that to show on the pages.
It definitely showed. And I just transferred. I had never been to Alabama until I went to college. I went to college at the University of Tennessee, and I went to go to a football game. That was my only time that I went to Alabama. And then I didn't return again until my son, he was at UAB for like a year, and then he went somewhere else. But yeah, I went to Birmingham for that. That was my first time ever. I had never been to any time in Alabama. But
no time like the present.
Yeah. Right. So what did you enjoy the most about writing this novel? Because it seems like your aunt said, is this person me? It seems like it's just really like a part of you.
I mean, this is paying honor to my ancestors and elders. I don't call the people on the book characters, because I think at some level, even if they aren't my people, they represent people who came before me. It was really just a joy to write the whole thing. Everybody in this book, Percy. Percy is just, he's Percy. Because we all know Percy. You know what I'm saying? His little personality. We all know Percy.
We do.
It was really a joy to take a lifetime of anecdotes and pride. And my mom used to say, you greet my mama in the morning. I'd say, good morning, Mama. She'd say, it's a great day to be Black, or it's a beautiful day to be Black. And she would give us all of these like affirmations every morning. And so there's so much warmth that I came up with, and so much love that I came up with for our people. And I wanted that to show on the pages. So, it was a pleasure.
It definitely shows. It shows. It shows. It just comes through. Like it oozes out. The love I mean, it really does. It comes out. You can tell that there's like a lot of love within, I was going to say characters now, if you said I want to call them characters, but in all the people in the community, all the people in the community. So what, okay, so let's talk about this. Let me skip, I'm going to come back to my other question. Let's talk about this right here, because I thought this was interesting. The PEN America Literary Award winner. Talk about this and how this came about, and what is this? Tell the people.
In 2021, after the 2 months, I found out about the PEN Bellwether Prize for Socially Engaged Fiction. And so it's an award endowed by Barbara Kingsolver for works of socially engaged fiction. And so I thought, well, this is a history that I don't get to see in textbooks. I knew a history of Alabama that was different than what I had learned in my textbooks, because my family is from Alabama, right? So, my mom would be like, yeah, that's part of it, but your full history, and she would continue to drill that into us. So I written the book, and I thought in the 2 months, and I thought, well, I could polish it up, throw my hat in the ring, because this is the thing, like, because my mama came up the way she did, she always used to say, nothing beats a failure like a try, and you have to make people tell you no. And to me, that is such an embodiment of what she learned in her own community, right? Yeah. And so I said, okay, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. Worst thing that happens is that nothing happens. I move on with my day. So then in February of 2021, Barbara Kingsolver called me and she said, you've won this prize. And I said, this isn't Barbara Kingsolver. I don't know who this is, but it's not Barbara Kingsolver. She said, I assure you it is. And the book had been selected. So it won the PEN Bellwether Prize in 2021. And then for about a year and a half, a little over a year, I guess, we worked on the manuscript, like edited the manuscript and just went deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper in. And, here we are. So it was published.
Because you didn't have an agent or anything when you started.
I didn't know any. I mean, I really didn't know, because the thing is, I wasn't writing the book thinking about literary success. I literally thought, I really, really, really thought I was going to write this book, I was going to self-publish it, and then I was going to run it around in my family in Alabama and different places around, like just giving it to them from the trunk of my car. I promise you, I never, because to me, if you're making art, to me, that's where our art gets usurped. Is when we have this idea that it's got to be a bestseller. I have to write something that's going to be a bestseller. I have to write something that's going to appeal to a lot of people. I wrote this book for Black people. I wrote this book really for my family, but for us, for Black people, and like at a larger scale, to see ourselves in literature in a way that we don't get to see ourselves in literature. I invite everybody to read it, but it really makes me feel good to say that, to have people come to me and say, I know Percy. I'm like, of course you do, because we all know a person, right? We all do. I think we all know someone. All exactly. The book, I think we all relate to someone in the book, for sure. But if I had been thinking about this book has to be a bestseller, it has to have a certain publishing success, it has to win all these awards. If I had gone into making the art with that in mind, it would be a very different art. You know what I'm saying? So I really wanted to write something that was going to speak to, that was going to be true to the vision that I went into it with, and come out with the same vision intact.
I mean, I think I like to ask, what do you want readers to take away from the book? I know what I took away. I just felt good. I just felt like I was just in my grandmother's kitchen.
And you know what Robert said?
Around my family.
So when Robert finished, he blurbed it. When Robert finished reading the book, he FaceTimed me.
Yes, he did.
And he was crying. And I said, what's the matter? He said, what am I supposed to do now? Just leave New Jessup? And he said, he felt like he was on his grandmama's porch with her shelling peas. And that, I think, is one of the most common and beautiful responses to the work. The Black people are coming to me and saying, I'm sitting with my big mama again at some level. I'm out there with my granddaddy, Yeah. Grandmama's house. Like, even though they live together, it's still grandmama's house, right? But they're like,
I mean, I just totally like, cause I didn't have the benefit like a lot of my cousins growing up in the same town with them. So I would just come in the summer or Christmas time. So those were cherished moments for me when I was there around everyone. So, just being there, it literally reminded me of that. Just being in the kitchen around all of my family, like all my aunts, cousins, and uncles and things like that. So it definitely reminded me of that. So
No,
you know what I'm
what
gonna
could you
ask?
possibly ask?
I feel like there's a person. I feel like there's a person in the book that we didn't really. I want to know more, and I'm hoping that a story from her, a story that you're going to write about her. And we're talking about Alice's sister. I'm not giving anything away, you guys, so don't think I am. But I'm hoping that we can find out more. There's more to the story.
So, I mean,
and you don't have to say yay or nay, but
Rosie was a part of what we commonly refer to as the Great Migration. And I think there's a question for a lot of people how great the Great Migration was for everybody. As Black people, we've had our families separated on the soil since we've been on the soil, right? In different ways. And we've lost family for however many reasons since we've been here. And so I wrote the story because I thought Alice is like our big mama. She's the one that wanted to make sure everybody eats, but never asks for anything. And over the course of history, she's going to be forgotten. 1 or 2 generations, people are going to say, who's that lady in the picture? We'll remember the turkey she's holding. People will remember everybody else around the table, the dinner table, but they won't remember her name, or they start to forget her name. So I think it's really important to make sure to bear witness for these women who very much made sure everybody eats and could, go on and do what then they were able to do.
Right. So we're not going to get an answer on if they were going to have a story.
All I will say is I think it's really important for us to remember these women in history.
Yes. Okay. So you guys stay tuned. We'll see if we're going to have Miss Jamila back when she writes the book that tells us about what happens with Alice's sister. I'm manifesting that because I feel like, I am fascinated by the Great Migration, right? And what happens when people, when they left the South and went north. Because like you said, everything wasn't roses for them when they went north, right? And so I really want to see like what becomes of her and where is she? Because Alice is like, she's torn. It's her only sister. And she's like looking for her. She has dreams about her. She thinks about her. And so I was torn because I only have one sister. And I'm thinking like, if I couldn't find my sister, I would be devastated.
A friend of mine,
a
friend of mine who read the book, she kept asking me about Rosie. Because Robert, while he was reading, was texting, I'm not going to ask, but I want to ask. And I'm like, then don't ask if you're not going to ask. But my friend, not Robert, but my other friend, she was like, I have one brother. She said, and if something bad happens to Rosie, I'm going to misery you. And I was like, you're going to cut off my feet?
We're going to make you write it all over
danger, right? Of like writing something so deeply personal, people. I'm like, you better not cut off my feet. I like my shoes. She's like,
we're going to bring in the grill and put the manuscript on the grill and burn it.
I don't even understand.
And make you start all over.
But it's like you write something so deeply personal. I wrote it so deeply personal to me, but it has been so.
If you guys don't understand our reference, we're talking about misery.
She doesn't cut the feet off, but she like breaks his ankles.
She breaks them. Yes.
I
love that movie.
I don't know why my feet got anything to do with this.
Yeah, because he killed off misery. She had lost it. So don't do that.
Look, I'm not trying to give anybody any ideas. I like my feet. Please.
I like your friend. That's a good. I needed that laugh. Oh my goodness, that is a good one. So, because you won't tell us about Rosie, what's next for you? Like, what's coming down the? I could see this being like a.
I did tell you about Rosie. I said I can't see not telling a story about the women in our history.
Okay, good, great. Great. But can't you see this being like a really good
I think
miniseries?
we need to keep putting it in the universe. I told you what I want. I want Regina King to make it. I don't care if she makes a miniseries or a
Oh my
movie, but I
God.
feel like she would just. Can you see that? I can. So
She would be
good,
so
right?
good.
We have to
Yeah.
manifest that because
Yeah. Man, if you guys haven't read the book, you'll understand what we're talking about when you read it. Because it's just like, oh,
I mean, I
yeah,
just
I
feel
can
like
see
there's a
that.
certain eye
Definitely.
that she brings to her work, like both in front of and behind the lens, that especially
Mm-hmm.
with a woman like Alice, especially with like a woman like Alice, who I
Yes.
feel like is so layered and complex, and her vulnerability is special and her strength is special and her everything is just she's Alabama to me, and I just feel like it's going to take a really special
Yeah.
eye to get that right, and I think it's really cute.
Yeah. I agree.
Mhm.
I totally agree. So let me see if I don't think we have any questions. So I want to ask you anything that you're reading, and can you give us a book
Ooh,
recommendation or two?
so what I'm reading right now, let's see, Randall Keenan, Black Folk Could Fly. That's really good. It's a collection of his
Mm-hmm.
essays about, blackness in America and how he sort of came to writing, and it's just these really beautiful reflections. Yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
actually, was it yesterday? Yesterday, I picked up. So Toni Morrison, back in 2012, she gave the Ingersoll lecture at Harvard, and it was on writing goodness. And there's this thing that really, this idea that has always resonated with me, but I didn't have the language for it until I started to hear about her talking about it. Are you familiar with this? So she talks
I'm
about, in
not.
the Ingersoll lecture, she talks about how it's really, how writing evil has sort of become the mainstay of literature. And she's like, evil bores me. Evil is easy. It wears a top hat and a cape, and it becomes this character. It has its own theme music. And it's something that in literature, we're telling authors to write because it's supposed to be interesting. And she said, it just bores me. She said,
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to write goodness in literature. And she sort of goes on to talk about a number of like characters who she said were good, but they were somehow, she called them, she's like, they were mute, or they had like a cleft palate, or they had something about them that made their goodness to seem almost like, well, she said, dumb, right? Like they were just cowardly, or they were
Mm-hmm.
not like the center of their narratives. And so it really intrigues me, this idea, because I mean, New Jessup was really my sort of appeal to that, to say that we don't need, because
Mm-hmm.
the discussion about Negro Jessup is that one paragraph. And it could have just as easily been 5-10 pages of like horrific drama and terror. But, you know, in that part, she's like
Right.
turning it around and saying, we need to shove the white people out of here. Like we're sitting here having our first dinner together. I'm sitting down with this fine man, and here he goes bringing the white people right to our table, and I'm not having it. She's like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
but I just picked up a book, and it's Toni Morrison, like it's like goodness and literary imagination. So I'm really excited to dig into that.
Okay.
I just bought it yesterday, and I was going to read it on the train, but it's so far it's really really good, and it's basically them going like extrapolation on the Ingersoll lecture. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Well, this has been so great.
Oh,
I'm so glad you
thank
joined
you
me
for
and talked to me
having me.
again. It's been wonderful. I'm I'm liking the coverage that I'm seeing for Moonrise Over New Jessup, and I hope if you haven't got a copy, please go get a copy. There's I didn't put the link because I just forgot. Sorry, but we have it in our bookshop, in the Diverse Finds Bookshop. Support Miss Jamila. So
Thank you
thank you for
for
being with us
having
today.
me, and thank you for all this beautiful support. I'm
Of
so grateful for you,
course,
Jamise. Thank you.
of course. Thank you. All right, you guys. We'll see you next month
Bye.
at the end of the
Bye.
month. Take care. Bye bye.